Episode 1 is going to be my friend Luke Sharkey. He's a big Rangers fan. He's going to come on and talk about his 25 to 30 years of supporting Rangers, ups and downs, highs and lows. As I can assure you, there's been plenty of for him. It's a bit ironic, actually, that the first episode being Rangers, considering that the host of this podcast is a Celtic fan. So there'll be some interesting views. I hope you enjoy. Episode 1, Football Journals. Welcome to Luke Sharkey.
Thanks for having me. No
worries, mate. We're going to be on speaking about Rangers, unfortunately, for me today.
The timing's not bad for you as a Celtic fan.
Well, I did try and say we'd stay away from current football, but I suppose we'll go straight in. How was last weekend for you?
Shite.
To be fair, I think I said it to you in a message before. I says with how poor both teams were playing, it was probably going to be a good game.
Aye.
I think
it was there for the taking for either team. I don't think either side was particularly good.
I think it was a shit game.
Aye.
It was a very, I think Beale said it was a very average Old Firm, and he's not
agree
wrong.
with that. Yeah.
He's not wrong. Few controversial decisions, but it's an Old Firm. There's always a controversial decision in it. Whether
was it your favourite recently?
It seems to be, it seems to be, but
we didn't play well enough to win the game. I think a draw was a fair result if it had been that way, but
I think
you can't take anything away from the finish from Kyogo as well. It was
first
outstanding.
Time. First time. Do you think he's the best Celtic have had since Larsson?
Yeah.
Aye. I put up that stat into the group chat a couple of weeks ago, and he's actually outdoing Larsson in his numbers just now, which is
Larsson
crazy.
had more to his game though.
Yeah, agreed. More physical, better his head and things.
Anyway, we're talking Celtic. This is a Rangers episode.
Right, I'm going to get straight into questions. How good a football player were you as a
kid? Enthusiastic, but I had a terrible touch. I think
what position?
So I remember playing soccer sevens. My first sort of real football.
This yesterday.
I played left back. My very first game, I tried to run after the ball that was being crossed in. Eyes on the ball as you're told to do, and ran clean into the goalpost and whacked my head off that.
So nothing's changed there because you've actually just recently got over an ACL.
Not really. It was almost a year ago to the day, and I'm still waiting on an operation.
Exactly.
Which has a 9-month recovery. So,
so you played as a kid as you do now? Because I've played against you.
I think I tried all different positions. Really, I remember playing on the wing when I was a wee bit older. Got played as a striker, and I remember my high school coach telling me that I was shite in the air for a big man. He played me out wide more often. I wasn't very fast either. So.
Encouraging that. You're shite in the air as a big man. Out you go. What kind of age did you stop taking football seriously?
I still don't think I have really. You know yourself, we're both involved with coaching locally, and it's almost like a natural progression when your body can't take playing anymore.
I still think my body can take it.
Yeah, I wish I could. Before the injury, I think I was doing all right. I'd love to get back to it, but I just need to see how the recovery goes. Mm-hmm. I think I'll be pushing 34 by the time I'm recovered from the surgery. So,
but you got all sorts these days. It's not just fucking walking football these days.
Well, that's it.
I as long as I'm capable of kicking a ball or capable of telling kids how to kick a ball, I'll probably always be involved.
That's the thing, is not being able to even kick a ball. Sometimes I can kick a ball and it just sort of goes out of place again. I've had a couple of false dawns where I've kind of made a return at football and it's been quite short-lived.
You need to get that operation, man.
Definitely.
Okay, next question. Good answer. Favourite all-time player? The reason I don't give you these questions beforehand, because I don't want you thinking, all right, I've got 2 or 3.
Aye.
What's the first thing that comes to your head and you think, that's my favourite player of all time?
Right, I'm going to go with a non-Rangers player because I've picked a Rangers 11 for my team. My favourite player as a kid was Andrei Shevchenko.
That's
in that Milan team. I think growing up when we did, I didn't have Sky as a kid, so most of the football I watched was Italian football. Sunday mornings, Football Italia.
Champions League Tuesday nights.
Aye. Yeah. I mean, that Serie A was full of top players back then. I didn't have a team as such, but Shevchenko as a striker, I think I was playing up front at the time myself.
At the time at Milan, you're probably talking top 3 strikers in the world. Try to think, it's like late 2000s, so you probably got Raul at the time.
I think Shevchenko was better for a while anyway.
You've maybe got Kluivert, and you've got Shevchenko. It's probably
Del Piero as well. He was up there for me.
Vieri, maybe.
Crespo.
Different kind of striker. Vieri. Crespo was another kind.
All of them great numbers for goals, though. You're talking like 5 players in the same league all scoring 20 plus goals in a season.
Well, you kind of just taking it out of my mouth there. It just shows the strength of the league at the time,
particularly against like some of the best defences in the game as well.
Yeah, I spoke about this on another episode. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to bring it back to him again. Modern players, we're trying to compare the other day players and like how good they are compared to players of 20 years ago and things like that. And what I always judge it against is not how good the players themselves is, how good defences they're playing against, how good the goalies are playing against. Now, in my opinion, if you're lining up against a Cannavaro, a Thuram, a Conte, a Nesta, a Maldini, a Yapstam, it's a lot better than lining up against a William Saliba or a Lewis Dunk or something like that.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So that's why I think these players are slightly better. They've got more to do against these world class.
There's differences. I think footballers nowadays are more athletes than they were back then. Like, look at players like Gascoigne, Maradona, who had their flaws off the pitch and that. There's no room for error like that nowadays. It's all top level.
Everything's under a microscope.
From their diet, their mental health, their sleep, everything's regulated heavily.
And I suppose it takes the Maverick. You take the Maverick out of the football. I think it takes a little bit of the creativity.
That's become
out of the
a bit
game.
robotic. Like when you say favourite player, actually, a contender with Shevchenko would be Ronaldinho. Most entertaining player I've ever seen.
Yep,
without a doubt. I think anyone who's seen him play would say that.
Well, I said
God, is this a copy of my episode right now?
It is. It absolutely is. But I think this is going to be a theme with Ronaldinho. Mm-hmm. I've spoke to my kids down at my coaching and down at my boys' league, and I always say, like, you play a smile on your face, enjoy your game. It'll make, even if you go out and get pumped 5-0, if you've played, you've put on a bit of skill, if you've run past a man, you've got a wee bit of gain from that game. You've not came away absolutely pumped and dejected and
it's something memorable.
Yeah, you've actually gained something from that game. Ronaldinho, putting aside how good a player he was entertainment to watch. I says this to Ryan the other day, is there a kind of player you would sit down over what teams were playing just to watch? And Ronaldinho is probably the first player that pops in my mind.
Yeah, likewise.
I couldn't care less what team he's playing for. If he's playing, I'd quite watch a game. I watch all the Soccer Aid games with him, and he's
I've seen better players. Like Messi's a better player than Ronaldinho was, without a doubt. But Ronaldinho was more entertaining to watch.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've seen recently with Soccer Aid, he was trying to chip Seaman 2 or 3 times.
Rolling it back to 2002.
Yeah, and he was making a point of trying to chip David Seaman.
I remember that joke when I was in primary 7 or something.
I couldn't lob Seaman for 40 yards. Okay.
I think there was an Iron Brew campaign around the same time trying to get Scottish men to go with Brazilian women so we could have a World Cup winning generation of footballers in 20 years' time.
Just Iron Brew. Their adverts are getting good again. I seen one with a mullet the other day. It's quality.
It's a good thing you bring up though, because you were talking about like not a lack of personality, but there was a personality to that sauce that like edgy football players brought. Like we were talking about the Brazilians the other day, like they all had, Ronaldinho's been in Paraguay in prison. I was telling you about the Wikipedia story of like on Wikipedia there's actually stats of his like tournament in Paraguay in jail. Like, where are they getting these stats from? Do you know what I mean? Like, who's recording this?
Well, Brazilians are a different breed altogether.
I think it's a thing with football fans. We all like the Maverick. You look at like Maradona, Gascoigne, Ronaldinho, obviously. It's someone who's like that flawed genius, and you always think like they were that good at 70%. How good would they have been if they'd had the work ethic some of the other players do?
And I think it all kind of started with the original Maverick with George Best, wasn't it?
Oh, without a doubt.
He went his own way, he done his own thing, but he also had the football. A good point to make with all these Mavericks, they all had the football ability to back up. You see players like I've picked on him at time before, but I just don't like the guy that is Neymar. He's all flicks and tricks, but
no end product.
There's no end product,
or not enough of it anyway.
There's never a Ballon d'Or contention. There's nothing like that. It's all for him. It's all for show. There's never anything for the team.
I'm glad he's gone to the Saudi league now. And
it's a place that kind of deserves him. Okay, next question. Most memorable game of football. That can be TV, live, boys league, anything, man.
Most memorable game. I always remember my first Rangers game. That's got to stand out. It was a 1-0 win against Hearts at Ibrox. Billy Dodds scored the goal, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't remember much of the game, really. It was a 1-0 win against Hearts, so pretty routine, but just experiencing a big stadium for the first time and going to see Rangers play live at the time was brilliant.
Billy Dodds, that's a throwback.
Aye, absolutely. I think Neil McCann played that day as well.
Number one Catholic, Neil McCann.
The thing that stood out for me actually was that I got a hot dog at half time and it was the worst hot dog I'd ever eaten. It was just like a burnt sausage. It wasn't a hot dog sausage.
That wasn't a hot dog stand.
But I think I was 7 years old at the time or something like that. And like all my family were Celtic as well, which is kind of why I started supporting Rangers as a kid. Really, it was wine my granddad.
This is becoming a theme as well. Isn't
literally
it?
the polar opposite. So
going against the grain. We found that family. I'm Celtic through and through. My family is Celtic through and through. But we found this with a few people that if their family's quite heavy, they tend to be not. It's either the complete opposite or just something that doesn't agree with what that club is.
Aye. My mum always reminds me about a time when my granddad had pulled me up about supporting Rangers, and he was, you should support your local team. Why are you not following Elgin City and that? And at the time, I was going to Elgin games most week. I was about 9 or so at the time, but I'd been to quite a lot of Elgin games. But Rangers was my sort of big team that I followed, and my mum pulled him up and says, well, why do you support Celtic when you grew up in Clyde?
It's a very good point. Yeah, it's a very good point.
It's like football's not an echo chamber. No one wants it to be an echo chamber. You want the banter. You want that kind of rivalry involved, right, with your mates, your family, 100%. Or whoever it may be.
Yeah, and we've always talked
like
about
us with the losing bets at football, having to wear each other's kits and stuff like that.
Just kind of for the viewers' reference, we play football on a Thursday night, and we've also got a fantasy football league going. So we've actually both been put in Celtic and Rangers kits, and we're both obviously Celtic and Rangers fans, but we've been put in the opposite kits as forfeits for games over the last couple of years. It took me about 6 months to reappear at football after I realised I was got kitted.
I think I got the better end of the deal because I was bibs when I had to wear the Celtic top. You were non-bibs in the Rangers top.
You got a bib, like, so it wasn't so bad. But no, it was good. Okay, current favourite player in world football?
Who
do you like?
That's a tough one.
Who do you like watching? Like,
there's your obvious sort of top level ones like your Messi and whoever.
My answer was Haaland, and I just like when Haaland gets the ball and just murders defences, like just starts running at them, and I just think it's so. There's nothing you can do.
Right, so mine. A bit of a random one. There's probably more that I'm not thinking off the top of my head, but I always liked watching David Silva play. I know he's gone back to the Spanish league and he's kind of taken a step down a bit, maybe not playing as much, but quite recent. Him at Man City, just brilliant to watch on the ball. I think technically one of the best players I've seen.
Yep, he was like a slowed down Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah. When you look at his goal record and that for Spain as well, he's got a remarkable goal record for Spain. Played more games than Xavi and Iniesta for Spain.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's and that Spain team at the time as well, he was playing regular.
He won all 3 tournaments that they won. He was in the squads for all 3.
And when you look at that midfield, you've got Iniesta, you've got Xabi Alonso, you've got Xavi. The early days you had players like Carlos Marquena,
Albelda was
Marcos Senna.
Senna, yeah, he was good.
And then later on you had like Fabregas and all that. Mm-hmm. I can always remember Silva being very consistent in them teams, so it just shows kind of his level of quality.
Aye. I think he brought out the best in players around him as well. We saw that with Man City and with Spain.
Yep.
And even now he's gone back to Real Sociedad and got them into the Champions League.
It's funny you mention him. I used to like watching Santi Cazorla at Arsenal, and I felt he was like a very similar player.
Just too injury prone.
Yeah, definitely. They reckon that Cazorla could have been as good as Messi if he just stayed fit and stayed at a decent.
Where was it? He came through Villarreal, wasn't it?
Villarreal. He went to Arsenal.
Silva was Valencia.
Good player. That Spanish crop of player for that space of about 10 years was just unbelievable, mate.
But you can bring it all back though to like the way Barcelona were playing. Everyone's kind of tried to model it, and it goes back to Cruyff and the 4-3-3, and just shows you how that develops and has such a wider impact on the game in different countries.
Yeah. Do you, like, as a coach, do you try and take in any of that philosophy when you're coaching kids, like keeping the ball on the ground? Or?
100%. I believe, if you have the ball, you're not conceding goals, you're in control of the game. It's a formation that sort of allows the team to be fluid as well. 4-3-3. You can go to a back five or a back, whatever you want really in defence. It's very flexible.
It's I'm a big believer of keeping the ball on the ground. I think the more you do it, it gets kids put under pressure. Like if you've got centre backs passing the ball about, and they've got strikers pressing them, the more they do that, they're going to get used to passing that ball about, and they're going to turn from a scrappy centre half who clears the ball into a Rolls Royce of a defender who can pass the ball about.
And also, when you're coaching kids around the ages that we are, like 9 to 11-year-olds, and that half of them are scared to head the ball.
Yeah.
So why do you want the ball in the air?
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of them, you're the same as me. We've coached in that league this season. How many times do guys get beat on the bounce?
Oh, all the time, yeah.
Every game, 10, 15 times that ball is bouncing over a kid's head. If you've got a quick striker, just tell them wait for that bounce.
Yeah.
Wait for that bounce. The ball's going to be in and you're around them. I think I've got a striker who's got about 10, 15 goals from that this season. You know who I'm on about. He waits for that bounce. He knows the guy's going to miss it with his head and he's in. Whereas I was getting my players to play out. I was playing a lot of long ball this season, but I was using my goalkeeper strengths. My goalkeeper's distribution was unreal, unbelievable. Could put the ball the length of the pitch without even thinking about it. So I had to use that to my advantage. But any other time, I want to play out from the back. It's nicer. It gets the kids used to it, and also, like, there's nothing worse than a kid who gets put under pressure and they clear the ball in and they've cleared the ball 10 yards and then
to an opposition player,
they've lost it. The kid does not go pressing that ball. Their head goes down. They're like, oh shit, I've lost the fucking ball, blah blah blah. Kid. And we can see it different because we're on the sidelines, but it's on the ground. I'm a big believer in that. Good question.
That's what they're there at that age for, is to learn the game. It's not so much about the results, and obviously they all want to win, and us as coaches would obviously rather win, but the most important thing is their development.
Their development, they're enjoying
that comes from playing with the ball, not from hoofing it up the pitch.
Exactly. You can't do anything without the ball at your feet.
Exactly, yeah.
Good answer. Sorry, I said good question. Complimenting myself. Okay. Best player you've seen in the flesh?
Zidane.
Wow.
Yeah,
Zidane. My favourite player of all time.
Really?
Yeah, favourite player of all time. There's nothing that man can't do by football.
I
don't know if any of you have watched the documentary on YouTube. It's just 30 odd cameras pinned on him throughout an entire game. Every camera just follows him.
Was this at Madrid then? Yeah.
At Madrid, and it's done to classical music, and it's one of the most beautiful 25 minutes you'll ever see in your life. And some of the things he does with that football, because you're watching it from this broadcast view, you don't see some of these things he's doing up close.
Yeah, and it's just some of the wee touches and flicks and that. And it's over in a second, so you don't even think about it, but then you see it slowed down and think.
They say that he had eyes in the back of his head, Zidane, because he always knew what was behind him, and he was always flicking balls over players and things like that.
Just constant scanning the head on a swivel the whole time. You see it with the likes of Xavi and that. All the best midfielders, they've got that in common.
Did you see Zidane play against Rangers?
No, I saw him play against Scotland.
Wow.
Yeah.
2006.
The Euros qualifying.
Wow. We were speaking about this game yesterday. We were speaking about the France leg yesterday. It says it's the twice. I'm going to ask that question in a minute. The twice that I've cried in football was 2003 when we lost to Porto, and 2006 when James McFadden scored in Paris.
Unbelievable goal, wasn't it?
So it's two times I cried in football.
The home game was Gary Caldwell.
Yeah, Gary Caldwell. We did the double over him.
Yeah, right at the end of the game.
Absolutely. And then
I've been to a few games at Hampden, but that was the best atmosphere I've ever seen there.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Did you manage to get to a few games that campaign, or was just
just that one? I think there might have been one other one near at the start of the campaign. But what I remember from that is that France and Italy had just contested the World Cup final, so it was the toughest group we could have possibly got.
Yep.
And only a defeated Georgia cost us getting through the group as well.
That's it.
So that's why I'm kind of
Italy
thinking.
not put us out last minute as well. A free kick or
I think
something.
it was 2-0.
Luca Toni.
Remember
Disgusting.
the free kick was given though, and it wasn't a free kick.
Foul on Alan Hutton, wasn't it?
Yeah. Given the other way, and then they scored. But I think that made it 2-0.
I think it was 2-1. They went 1-0 up, and then Barry Ferguson equalised,
Aye.
and then it was like 96th minute, literally right at the shot clock, as they would say in basketball. And yeah,
But I think we
sayonara.
needed to win the game after
Yeah.
losing to Georgia. So, and that's why I'm treating this campaign with just a wee bit of caution. We've lost in Georgia a couple of times before, so
Yeah, I think we've got optimism to look at this campaign, though.
we could be qualified without playing again if it's
Yeah.
a draw on Tuesday night.
Exactly. There's a lot of hope for Scotland just now.
I think we'll get through. We need to be looking at winning the group now, hopefully.
Yeah, I'd say that's
Yeah.
realistic. My dad said something recently about, would you not rather just finish slightly further down, because we know Scotland are going to get knocked out in the Euros, and just get the big teams. And I can kind of see that. I do want the big teams.
I don't think the draw's seeded. I think it's quite an open draw, is it not?
I'm not too sure how it works. It's madness how it works with these nations
I
leagues.
saw a
and
table floating
seedings
about
and
online
everything.
last night though that was like said something about Scotland being the number one ranked team. And I don't know what it's based on. It must just be the qualifying campaign. but
Okay.
we're the number one ranked team based on qualifying. I'm not sure if that has any bearing on the
Wow.
groups or not. But
Okay.
yeah.
So that France team, you're talking like Henry. Ryan, can you pull up a lineup for that if you could find that?
What year are we talking here?
2000 Scotland versus France.
Cool.
Thank you. Probably talking like Henry.
I can't remember off the top of my head who played in the France team, but Thuram would have still been going.
Thuram,
towards the end?
Barthez, maybe Willie Sagnol,
Vieira.
Vieira. So that's some big players. Like
Aye.
I've never, like I've been to Scotland games, I've been to Celtic games, but I've never been to like that kind of stage
Aye,
of game
yeah,
before.
Just to beat them home and away, like World Cup finalists, and then give Italy a good game both times as well.
Yeah, that's like
Is it the France team or the Scotland team we're wanting here?
France team.
the France team, please, mate.
So you've got like the staples like Henry, Vieira, Sagnol,
Yep.
Abidal, Coupe, Florent Malouda, if you remember him.
Yeah.
Boomsong. Did he not play for Rangers at one
did,
point?
yeah.
Uh,
Left for Newcastle for quite big money.
8 million.
Lillian Thuram, like you mentioned, David Trezeguet,
Wow.
Claude Makelele, and Frank Ribery.
Oh, so Zidane didn't play that game?
Nope.
Okay, maybe I haven't seen Zidane.
Oh well. Even
Maybe put Ribery in there
You
then,
could
he
probably
was
pick
class.
any one of them players
yeah.
to throw that in there, because yeah, that's unbelievable. Like I know I've spoken about the current France team, but I think that France team beats the current France team.
Yeah, I mean, the French have always produced really good players. And just speaking on Zidane, was his last game not the final,
Final,
2006?
Final.
Yeah, because he put
Such a
the,
shame for his career to end that way.
put the nut on
Oh,
Materazzi.
I was actually going to mention this in one of the other episodes. Up until that point, he had an unreal final.
Yeah.
He was all over them.
Panenka
like-
the penalty.
Yeah, like in a World Cup final, to do that, to have the balls to do that
In the
is-
last game of your career,
It's
yeah.
just silly, man. It's just silly.
And then you hear about the reasons for the sending off, and you can understand why he did it a bit, but you do just need to keep the cool on the pitch, don't you?
Yeah.
What was
that's
it? It was his sister or his mum or something. He'd said something
his
about
mum an
his
Algerian
sister.
whore or something
Aye,
like that.
something like that. Yeah, because I forget his family's Algerian, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. I know the answer to this, so I'm going to ask you in terms of highest level. The question is, have you met a professional football player? I know you have.
Yeah.
Who's the most famous professional football player you've met, like face to face?
Ali McCoy's probably.
Ali McCoy. Yeah. That like legend matches and things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I've met quite a few of them through these. I'm trying to think of someone outside of Scottish football, because there's probably a couple as well, but
Yeah.
I can't think off the top of my head, so I'll go with McCoy. Yeah.
Okay, magic. Luke's also got a Kevin and McKidd story for another day.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh no! I think I might have seen this in the comment section. Something about not paying a pint tab.
Yeah.
We'll cross reference when he's in.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to Rangers. Sorry, my last question. Has football ever made you cry?
I I don't think so. No, I've
not
just not
even
much of a crier.
after Aaron Ramsey missed that penalty.
I felt like it.
I was trying
but
happiness, I tell you.
I just think how different things could have been if he'd scored that penalty, because we would have gone into the Champions League as top seeds the following season.
You would have. Yep.
The money that comes along with that, I think Van Bronckhorst would have been given the whole of last season.
Yep.
Things could have been so different if Aaron Ramsey had just scored his penalty, or even if Connor Goldson had cut out the cross. But hey ho.
If some buts, mate.
I know.
That's it. Like, okay.
I knew Ramsey was going to miss, though. I said to my pal in the pub, as soon as Ramsey stepped up, he's going to miss. He was the big signing. You could just kind of tell.
It's always something that happens in the shootouts.
Just in the stars. Like, so I want to talk a little bit about Rangers 2008 team. Just because obviously they reached the final in 2022, and this is a football from round about the time. This is your souvenir.
Oh no, this is more recent. This was from Stephen Gerrard's first season.
From the second round about the second final. Yeah. So there'll be a few names from the 22 final on here.
Yeah.
I want you actually to talk about this, because I think it's a really cool story how you came about this. Just tell everyone, because it's not it's yours, but
because I've taken it.
Because you've taken it.
So.
Okay.
My wee brother Flynn, when he was 14 or so, he broke his leg playing football at school. Bad challenge from the other kid who supposedly was out to hurt people. A bit of intent behind it. Ended up with quite a bad leg break, feeling a bit down about it. So I decided to try and cheer him up. I was going to message the SLOs, the support liaisons at all different clubs. So try and get them to just sort of send him something to cheer him up, or if they had a player who'd had a similar injury that could write him a wee note or something.
I'm just going to put in there that you are the support liaison officer for Elgin City.
Yeah.
That's
right, yeah. So I'd written to them, it was every top flight club in Scotland and England, a couple on the continent as well, like say Juventus, Bayern Munich and that. Didn't get a huge amount of responses, but maybe 10 or so clubs did send him stuff. So Rangers sent him signed ball by the whole team. He got a letter from Stephen Gerrard and another one from Jermaine Defoe. They'd just both joined the club that summer as well. Bournemouth were really good as well, actually. Eddie Howe was the manager at the time, sent him a letter as well. He got a card signed by the entire first team as well from Bournemouth. He got the same from Crystal Palace. Various other clubs sent him bits, and then my other brother had a pal who worked at Man City at the time, so he managed to get him like a signed Man City shirt and a couple of bits like that.
That's awesome.
But he's now really that into his football, to be honest, and he's gone off it more since then. I think having the injury, he couldn't play for ages. And, so I went up to my mum's a couple of years later and found the ball lying out in the garden. It was rained on and everything. So I thought, right, fuck you, I'm taking that home.
That's mad though, but it's good that the clubs are doing that. It's good for you to do that for your brother. But it's awesome to see that clubs are actually taking the time to go and get something like that.
Even clubs we had nothing to do with, like Bournemouth, sending bits like personalised letters from Eddie Howe and things like that up to the north of Scotland, when we've never had any interest in Bournemouth really. It was,
exactly.
Can we just talk about how good of a human Jermaine Defoe is as well?
Unreal, mate.
Does anyone remember his relationship with the wee guy at Sunderland?
When
he passed away,
it was really sad. That
he's still very involved with the family and things. He's become
afterwards.
personal friends with them, and
I honestly hate it when good guys sign for Rangers. Honestly, I really do. It's but no, honestly, the guy's one of the best people in football.
Outstanding footballer as well. I think until very recently, he was in the top 10 Premier League scorers of all time.
Yep.
He was just knocked out of it by someone in
he's
the last few
also
years.
one of these rare, if you've heard about the 1% club in football, he's one of these guys.
One of the guys to score 5 goals in a
Premier
League game or something like that?
No, the 1% club is... Is
this Juan Mata's charity?
They're trying to get everyone to sign up to Juan Mata's charity for all Premier League football players to donate 1% of their salary to charity. And I think Jermaine Defoe was one of the first ones in there. So good on him. He's awesome.
It doesn't sound like a lot, 1% of what they make, but then you think how many other charities they're also giving to on top of
1% of what they make is more than any of us make in a year. It's unbelievable.
Defoe was so underrated as well. I remember, do you remember AVB?
Yeah.
When he was Spurs manager, he came out and said Jermaine Defoe is just as good as Radamel Falcao, and Falcao was the best number 9 in the world at Atletico Madrid at the time, and everyone laughed. But if you look at Defoe's record anywhere he has went, anywhere in England, MLS, obviously when he came up.
Was he in the Portsmouth team that won the FA Cup?
Oh, that's a good
I
question.
think he might have been.
That's a very good
Because
question.
Spurs had like a really weird period of where they sold him, Robbie Keane, for like 6 months and then bought them back.
Yep.
Yeah,
Like pretty
made a huge profit as
Yeah.
well.
Yep, because they had a front four of Darren Bent, Pavlyuchenko, Robbie Keane. No, front five, Defoe and Crouch at the time.
Yeah. And Crouch went to Portsmouth at some point as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
And there was the both of them there.
I always think Crouch was criminally underrated in his career.
That goal against Man City.
Goal against Man
Real,
City
wasn't
for
it?
Stoke is just something else, mate.
Even some of the goals he scored for Liverpool, like the overhead kicks and that, do you know what I mean?
I
Like,
just love him as a personality as well. Like when you see him on the telly or on podcasts and whatever.
His podcast's quite
Aye,
good.
that
Like, I don't
question I
like
got
he's,
asked, what was
he's
it?
Sponsored by Brewdog.
Yeah.
Saying that, if Brewdog want to sponsor me, go for it.
What was it he said? If I wasn't a footballer, I would probably be a virgin.
So his missus is gorgeous as well. She's lovely. Like, right, I'm going to go on to 2008. So I asked you before. I done it to Ryan the other day. Can you name me the 2008 starting lineup for Rangers against Zenit St Petersburg in the UEFA Cup final?
Probably not the entire team.
Can you name any of them?
I know Neil Alexander started.
Do you want the formation?
It would have been a 4-4-2 of sorts under Walter. Surely.
No, that was a 4-3-3, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Neil Alexander in goals.
Yep.
Hutton at right back.
Nope. Hatton's not in it.
Is that Morris Ross or someone like that at right back?
Kirk Broadfoot.
Kirk Broadfoot, Jesus.
jeez, that's a name he's not heard for a while.
It's mad to think he played in a European final.
Yep. It gets madder than that.
The centre halves would have been Weir and Queller.
Yep. How good was Carlos Queller for that couple of seasons?
Outstanding. We'll get on to my 11 later, but he very nearly made the cut. He was that good.
Brilliant
Just
player.
wasn't quite there long enough.
He was one of the players as a Celtic fan. I thought, oh, fuck, not him, King, because you had him, you had a chance.
He's
like,
probably the best defender we've had in my time watching Rangers.
yeah, just pure.
I can't think of anyone who was a better player than him as a
Yeah.
centre half.
I suppose
agree.
you kind of warmed to him as well, right? Because you're a Villa. Well, you were a Villa supporter. or
I'm a
still
Villa
are.
I'm a fan. Yeah,
He
he
ended up
went to
down there,
Villa.
didn't he?
He done pretty well at Villa.
It was a good Villa team back then.
Yeah. He was always one of these players that was never below a 6 out of 10 or 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
He never had a bad game. Never great, but never had a bad game. That was centre half's left back.
Papach.
Yeah. Who played defensive mid? Now this is a player I didn't even know I'd fucking played for Rangers. Hemdani. Did you know that, Ryan?
No, I wouldn't know off the top of my head. No.
He was actually. I had him slightly under consideration. He wouldn't have made my starting 11 for this team, but possibly the bench. And it was because he didn't play that much, but he always played in the big games, especially under Walter Smith. Like any big game,
Where did he come from?
I think the French league somewhere. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. But yeah, he'd maybe not play for 3 or 4 league games in a run, and then he'd play a European game or he'd play an Old Firm or something, and usually did well in them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Your other two centre mids?
Barry Ferguson and
Yep.
Pedro Mendes.
Nope. Before Mendes. Another Scotsman. Kevin Thompson.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Kevin Thompson. Who played right wing that night? That's an interesting one. Because I looked up the formation for and this is bang on what he played this night.
Dartsville.
No, right wing that night was Stephen Whittaker.
Oh, of course, yeah. So it was.
Left wing,
Daniel Kuzan.
Stephen Davis.
Okay, right.
Up front, Darsheville.
So it's not a 4-3-3 then. Stephen Davis and Stephen
Well,
Whittaker have played there.
I call it a 4-3-3 while wingers. That's what I would call it.
I've never watched the game back, but I don't imagine that would have been.
Can you name any of the players from the Zenit team that night? Now, there's some interesting names in there.
Yeah, because they went on to beat the Man United Champions League winning team
They
in
did,
the
yeah,
Super
right,
Cup.
yeah.
Yeah.
Can you name the manager?
Dick Advocate.
Dick Advocate was the manager.
Oh wow! How the irony of that?
I believe
there's one more-
was Fernando Dixon in the team as
There's
well.
another irony
Really,
one.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Then they had Andre Arshavin as well, who was
Yep.
just outstanding.
They also had Malafeev, the
Yeah.
goalkeeper, who was unreal for his time, and they had Timoshuk, the wee
Football manager legend.
Yeah, we centre
Ukrainian.
defensive midfielder who's actually an outcast in his country, home country of Ukraine these days.
Because he played in Russia.
No, he fled when the war started. So
Okay.
he got out of the country and he's...
Yeah, because they want all the men to stay and fight rather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, right. 2020.
More than I thought I would.
That's good. That's good. And I've also got my notes. Boyd, Novo, and McCulloch came off the bench.
Yeah.
Back in the days when you could only have 3 subs. I think the big talking point before that game, going by the news articles, was Boyd over D'Archeville. And Boyd seemed to be starting all the league games, and D'Archeville seemed to be starting the European games for Rangers.
It worked.
Yeah.
It worked during the run, so why would you change it for the final?
What do you think? Like, I know we're going to talk about your 11, you've got Boyd in it. What do you think stopped Boyd from being the mainstay? Because he was never the main striker. It was always switching between him and Kenny Miller.
I think he was the main striker. He was the top goal scorer for several seasons.
Like 30 goals, round about that.
Yeah.
In the SPL.
But
all-time SPL top scorer as well.
That's true, and that sickens me over Larson. That really does. If Keego stays in our 10 years, it's in the bag. But
I don't think that's happening.
It's not going to happen. The money is there for him. Whittaker right wing. That's a bit of a fucking strange one. But
he was a good player, Whittaker.
You can say one thing about Walter
Scott
Smith.
Brown's assistant recently at Fleetwood as well.
Yeah, Scott Brown's just been sacked as well.
It was the morning of the Old Firm, actually.
Walter Smith always got his tactics kind of right in Europe, though. I remember you played a lot of penalty shootouts that season.
It was defensive, but that's how it needed to be. I think it's the only way really that a Scottish club's going to have any success in Europe, and you're seeing it with the national team now as well. You get the defence right and build on that platform, and that's what Walter Smith did so well, even before the European run. During
was Ali McCoy was assistant then, wasn't he? Yeah. I just remember that minging kind of light blue with dark blue.
Oh yeah,
kit you had. I just like I'm not bad. I can admit when I see a nice Rangers kit, when I see a nice Celtic kit, it's a nice kit's a nice kit, but that one was just awful. 2022, bit of a different run, better run for you. Some good results in that Dortmund game. I remember watching that and just my jaw dropping.
Aye.
Like, what the fuck is happening?
We battered them. It wasn't even just that we scraped through against them. Rangers were by far the better team in both legs.
I agree.
That's what made it all the more frustrating, though, when you get to Frankfurt in the final and you think we've already seen off Dortmund and Leipzig.
Would you have liked West Ham in the final?
Yeah, I would have.
I would have preferred that.
I just think having an all-British sort of game like that, it makes it that wee bit more interesting. Whether we would have won or not, I don't know, but it's a good West Ham team as well.
And it wasn't like Rangers had it all their own way in that run either. Like, I remember like that blow at the end of the Leipzig away game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they could have just folded, but obviously like they had the turnaround at Ibrox, which obviously was like the 12th man, wasn't it, in the home games and the second legs and whatnot on the way there.
But big atmospheres played a big part in that.
Oh, I think so.
That run.
Ibrox absolutely rocking through all those games.
Yep.
I think going away from home, they just sort of played with no fear. To score the amount of goals we did on that run as well, it was totally different to the 2008 run. It was built on the defence.
Aye, it's interesting to when you can we're going to compare the two teams in a second, but to get to a European final. You look at the two teams, and in between the time periods of that first team and the second team, Rangers had significantly stronger teams than these, but these were the teams that I felt
also went down the leagues and came back up, which makes it in the space of 14 years.
Yeah,
of one European final, go down at the bottom and start again and get to another.
It's some journey. There's no denying that. There's a film to be made there out there. Some of it, yeah.
To have Tavernier as the top scorer in the tournament as well. Like, that's
there's a joke in there that I'm not going to make it.
not just even like the dropping down the leagues though. Like, do you remember? Was it David Green? Was that the guy that was kind of messing out? Charles Green. I keep saying David. For some
I always thought it was so ironic that the two people that fucked over Rangers were called Green and White. Craig White and Charles Green, so.
They were going to sell it for £1 at one point, but there was talk of that, and it was like, whoa, because it happened so quick. It was like the space of 3 months from nothing's wrong to everything's went.
I think it's been brewing for a while, but
it's
I don't know. See, as a fan following it, when it's financial shit that none of us fully understand or have any control or influence over whatsoever, and all of a sudden your club's been plonked down in the bottom division, having to start all over again pretty much.
Did you go and watch Rangers when they were at Elgin?
Yeah.
Because I didn't get to the games or anything like that.
Oversold by 1,000 odd tickets.
And I think Elgin got a big fine because of that, didn't they?
Pretty much lost out.
How was the atmosphere at them games?
It was great. It was like, I've seen Rangers play in smaller teams, like in cup games and whatever, and you go to some of the smaller grounds and it's more Rangers fans than local fans.
It's basically a home game.
You might even go to see them play at Cali a few years ago. It was like a freezing cold January night, but there was definitely a majority of Rangers supporters there.
I'm in agreement with that. I've been to Celtic Cali, and I just wish they'd give us some more seats. That's all I can say.
I can remember having to phone up the Cali ticket office, and they said, "Oh, we're just checking you are Cali fans and not Rangers." And I just lied and said, "Aye, Cali,
blue, red, and white, mate."
Here's your tickets, no bother.
Clarence Seedorf's son's playing here. That's why I'm coming down. But even like grounds like Livingston and stuff like that as well, you just see the old firms.
St Johnstone have started doing a brilliant thing. They've started giving the old firm the other 3 stands, and it sells out.
It's not gone down well with their fans. So I've got a pal who's a season ticket holder there, and it's not gone down well with the fans. But
there's money to be made there.
Exactly.
And Celtic and Rangers will sell out stadiums 3 times over if they could. It's harder to get an away ticket for Celtic or Rangers than it is to get a home ticket.
Yeah,
and a lot of people don't realise that.
Looking at when Elgin had their cup run, almost getting to the quarterfinals. I'd spoken to someone at the club, and if Elgin had drawn one of the Old Firm away from home, because it's a 50-50 split of the ticket money, it would have been worth roughly $250,000 to Elgin, which could sustain the club for a couple of years.
Yeah.
It's huge for clubs that size.
Right, 2022 final. Name of the team.
Sharkey in goals.
Yes.
Tavernier.
Yep.
Goldson. Who played beside Goldson? James Sands.
No, he came off the bench. Big lad.
Katic? No, it was
Bassey. Big Bassey.
Oh, of course, yeah. Surely. So Barisic on the left then.
He had 2 defensive mids. Sorry. He had 3 centre mids.
So what, Lundstrom, Jack, and Davis?
No, it was Kamara.
Kamara, of course, yeah.
And then you had your front 3.
Morelos.
No.
This is terrible. It's only a couple of years ago, and I'm struggling to remember. Kent, obviously.
Scott Wright.
Did he start?
Scott Wright.
I remembered him playing it.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Criminally underrated player, by the way.
It's Aribo, isn't it?
Aribo's a striker.
That's right, because he scored the goal at the start. Yeah.
He also had off the bench. You had Davis, Sands. You had Sakala came on the 74th minute, and then came off in the 117th for Aaron Ramsey. And you also had Kamar Roof. Came on. Morelos didn't play that night.
Must have been injured or something.
That, I've been there. I've been there when you lost the European final. It's fucking gutting.
Yeah,
especially.
I think when you look at both lineups as well, there's key players missing from both. When you get to that stage of the season, you've not got your first team to pick from.
I think Rangers lost that final. It came down to individual battles on the pitch. You look at that Kostic had an unreal game.
Yeah,
the boy Bora up front was just running you about the place.
But the thing was, though, it was that late goal that Goldson didn't cut the cross out, and if he cuts that out, I think we go on and win in normal time.
Yeah,
it's just small margins. It's the way it
small
goes. Small
margins. What was it feeling like at full time? Because I remember 2003. Yeah, I was only 12 years old at the time, but I fucking cried my eyes out.
Just deflated. I was sitting in the granary watching it, full of Rangers fans, obviously, and just the atmosphere just
quiet.
Quiet afterwards. There was a lot of folk who'd sort of been there to watch a lot of the European games, so you kind of got to know a few folk from who've watched the entire run with these random folk in the pub or whatever, and we're kind of all in it together, had all these great moments throughout the season, and then you get to the end and think you're actually going to do it after we score as well, and to end the way it did in penalties with Ramsey missing the one as well, which it was kind of fate though. You could tell that he was going to be the one to miss.
Yeah, 80 grand a week it cost you. There was rumours it was 400 grand a week. It wasn't. I looked this up last night. It's 80 grand a week it cost you in wages.
Still ridiculous money for Scotland. For a player who was injured half his time here and didn't do anything.
He scored an Old Firm goal. That was about his only contract, and he still got beat that game. So it's there was money to be spent better elsewhere.
There was talk in the summer, I think it's probably ridiculous, but about Eden Hazard coming in on a free transfer and that. But I was so not excited by the prospect of that. I mean, I didn't think it would ever happen anyway. But the money he would have been on, his injury record, and I mean, he was at Olympiacos last season. They've not wanted to keep him on. So I've not seen him play recently, but the standard can't be that great if they didn't want to keep him.
No.
just a mercenary now, really, isn't he?
Aye, and it's these big money signings, big names and that, the reputation sort of precedes them, and it's not necessarily a good signing. I'd rather see the money spent buying several young players and sort of seeing what they can develop into.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. The money doesn't seem to have been spent right this season, though, does it? It's like,
I think the jury's still out on a lot of them, but
I think he needed to spend money at the back.
I think when you actually look at Michael Beale's record at Rangers, he's got the best win record of any, I don't even just think at Rangers, I think of any SPL manager. Like, he's got a better win record than Brendan Rodgers did in his first season.
Aye.
But, you know, he's had such a good record last season because we won pretty much every game under him, bar a couple of old firms.
Yeah.
And, you know, you go into this season, he's changed half the team.
Yeah.
He was so consistent at the end of last season. I don't think he needed to change as much.
I don't get, like, I've said this at different clubs, I don't get how players can be so good under one manager and just be complete outcasts under others.
Right.
Like, I always go back to Glenn Kamara. He was so good under Gerrard. Like,
I think he's sort of down tools. I think he's wanted a move from probably last summer.
That's maybe a bit part to play. Kent, his first season when he was the one when he was on loan before he signed.
I wouldn't have signed him. See, to be honest, I remember saying at the time, the season on loan, I think he played 46 games, scored 3 goals, something poor like that. I didn't think it was worth the investment at the time on him. He came in, he was a great player for us, did lots of good things, but his actual end product was quite poor.
Yeah.
When you compare him to the likes of Sakala or even, I'd imagine Scott Wright with a similar number of games to Kent would have scored a lot more goals.
I'd say so, yeah. Probably a lot more assists and goal contributions.
I think he's
as
criminally
well.
underrated as well.
Scott Wright, yeah.
I think he wouldn't be a starter in my team, but he's a great impact player to have. Very direct.
The same can be said about Kamara Roof.
Yeah.
He's, especially, you've seen the Rangers fans' reaction when he came off last Sunday. They weren't happy about it, you know.
No.
He played really well, and he get replaced by Dross, you know.
He's the best finisher at the club, Roof. Without a doubt.
That goal in the Europa League says it all, doesn't it?
I think folk forget about that as well. Like, yes, he scored from his own half, but he also beat 3 men in a puddle and then fucking scores from 55 yards.
Also a criminal mistake in that final. You're taking off Sakala and putting on Ramsey's sole purpose of taking a penalty. I think if you're taking somebody off for the sole purpose of putting on...
Take off a fullback or something like that.
Yeah.
Centre half.
Yeah, you're taking off a defender. You're not taking off another player that can score a penalty.
Yeah.
I don't understand that one. Right, we're going to go into your all-time team. I'm just going to read through it and then we're going to pick it apart. Right, you're going to have to give me this proper pronunciation for Tav because I always say it wrong and I get fucking shouted at by Rangers fans for it. So
just call him Tav.
Okay, Tav. We've got Shagger McGregor in goals, Tav, Weir, Amoruso, Newman, right mids Ronald De Boer, Ferguson, Barry Ferguson centre midfield with Gaza. That's some centre midfield player in that. Like, Loudrop left midfield, McCoist and Boyd up front. Your subs bench is Stefan Kloss, Fernando Rickson, Majid Bagheera, Stephen Davis, George Alberts, Peter Lovenkrands, and Nat Shanova with Walter Smith as your gaffer. Right. Fucking hell, I'm turning blue. Right, we'll just start at the back. McGregor. We kind of spoke a little bit before it. McGregor over Kloss. You said Kloss more consistent, but McGregor just for the longevity.
Yeah, and just some of the outstanding moments and that.
I think also for the off the field antics, he's a bit of a
relatable.
He's a banter character. He's like,
I think especially in Scottish football, we like that sort of character as well.
I always go back to when he got kicked to the Scotland team and he's sitting with Ferguson on the bench, giving the press the fingers, like pretending like.
I think too much was made of that because like they've gone out for a sesh after they've lost a game. And fucking,
that's what happens, man. Yeah. It's like I don't. Scotland would have benefited from him over the last 10 years.
100%.
Massively.
Yeah.
Like
when you look at David Marshall and Craig Gordon getting in, but they're both quite injury prone over the time and everything. And McGregor could have had a lot more caps than what he got.
I think we've got our problem solved now, maybe in Angus Gunn, but
I hope so.
For the last 3 or 4 years, he could have been in that spot.
Even at his age.
Even at his age, yeah. It just kind of shows the class of him.
When you had Marshall coming in at Hibs, for example, and Gordon playing at Hearts, but then you've got McGregor playing in Europe and things like that,
Yeah.
and winning things with Rangers. So
Gordon coming in after, was it a broken leg or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, I think he's the best on talent out of the three keepers we've mentioned there as well, Gordon. But no, McGregor, just for his sort of longevity and some of the saves he made, especially in the European run.
Old Firm
remarkable.
saves as well. He always came up big in the Old Firm
I think
games.
he saved, is it 2 or 3? He saved a few penalties in Old Firms anyway. It's at least 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good shot stopper.
Yeah.
Maybe not the best distributor of the ball at his
I
feet.
think that's been one of the criticisms of him, but that's only really come into the game in the last few years. I think
agree,
his first spell at Rangers, a keeper didn't need to be good with the ball at their feet.
Yep.
It's a more sort of modern thing.
Yeah, and I think, like, I always used to say it before an Old Firm, he'd start slow with the ball at his feet. I don't see why we never played Maeda up front.
Yeah.
Have him been running in at McGregor. You know, when McGregor gets that ball at the feet, as soon as you see that ball going back to McGregor, Maeda should be after that ball, you know. But it shows what I know.
Even when you look at the start of his career, though, like he actually started out as part of the Hutchie Vale youth setup.
Yeah.
But he's not one that gets mentioned along with it. Folk think of like say Gary O'Connor and Derek Riordan and all these who come through, but McGregor was in that team as well. Came into the Rangers youth setup and then he broke his wrist and broke his hand in his first year in the youth academy. So it kind of stunted his progress a bit.
He's turned it round.
He didn't make his debut until he was 22 or something like that, which isn't that old for a keeper.
He was late breaking in, I remember
he had
that.
2 loan spells after that because we were signing like Ronald Waterus and Letizi, and they were getting in ahead of him.
Yeah.
It was only when he was about 24, 25 that he actually became a regular in the first team.
That's interesting. Like,
He's still gone on to make 350 odd appearances.
Yeah. Insane, like, it really is. And he went down to England
Aye.
a couple of times, played regular there, and then came back as well. The next one's a controversial one. Like, I don't know what I like to get Rangers fans' opinions on. Is it Tavernier? Tavernier?
I say Tavernier.
Tavernier.
Yeah,
is he a Rangers captain material?
I think so. My reasoning for this is, I don't know, he gets a lot of flack from Rangers fans. Folks saying that he's not captain material, but to my mind, Steven Gerrard and Gio van Bronckhorst are 2 of the best captains of their generation, and they saw fit to keep him as captain.
Yeah.
They're the guys who see him 5 days a week in training, see how he carries himself off the pitch. You know, as fans, we're only seeing the 90 minutes on the pitch, and there's been a lot of frustrating games for Rangers fans over the last few years. So I think he's made a scapegoat sometimes. He can be culpable defensively, but I think a large part of that's down to the system.
I agree.
You're not going to have a fullback score 100 and whatever goals over the last few years without them bombing on forward.
No.
To my mind, that's where the likes of Lundstrom or whoever should be slotting into the defence and covering for him.
Yep.
It does get exposed, but he's 6 foot tall as well, so he's actually decent in the air. He's better than folk give him credit for defensively, but I think the system we play leaves gaps on his side.
And unreal finisher of a ball.
Yeah. His goal the other week from 30 odd yards.
Was that the
or
Ross
whatever.
County one?
Aye, yeah. Just you know, he wasn't even the way he ran up to the ball there. It wasn't even like he was set properly for it, and he still just found that wee gap in the top corner.
The one against Celtic last season was just something else. Like, and you know, he's always got that threat.
Even like coming back to like the question of is he captain material? Some of the goals he scored in that European run that drag us over the line.
He finished. Did he not finish Europa League top scorer that season?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
I doubt a defender's ever done that before.
No, I don't think so. I can't think of a defender that scored that many goals.
Nowhere near.
Maybe looking at someone like Sergio Ramos, that'd be a bit the exception.
I don't think he's got anywhere near as many.
He's got over 100 La Liga goals.
Yeah, but mostly headers and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Where Tavernier's coming in at the back post, he's scoring
That's a
set
very
pieces
good point.
and all that kind of stuff.
That's a
Both
very
took
good
penalties
point
as well.
Yeah. Okay. David Weir, one of my favourite Scottish players of all time.
Yeah. Oldest ever Scotland international.
Yeah. Could read a game, like didn't need the pace. Like
he was almost 37 when he came to Rangers as well, and he played for 5.5 seasons.
And like Celtic never really exposed him, and they tried to, but they would never play fast players against him. It was always like, right, we'll play Samaras against him. It's like,
But then he had the likes of Queller alongside him as well, so
yeah, he could do his running
he's
for
part
them.
of a good unit there.
I did like Davy Weir, and as I say, good for Scotland as well.
Even the career he had before coming to Rangers, like
Everton
won
and
the Scottish
Hearts.
Cup with Hearts, and Everton captain for a long time.
Highly thought of down in England as well.
And even now, look at the work he's doing at Brighton. He's technical director at Brighton now.
I did not know that. Yeah.
So a big part of their success recently has kind of come since he's come into the building.
Wow.
I think he'd have placed Dan Ashworth when he went to Newcastle.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, the next man is probably the guy that gave me the biggest nightmares as a kid. Honestly, he used to scare me.
Big Ammo.
Big Ammo used to actually scare me. Like,
Aye.
I remember being about 10 or 12 and watching Rangers beating St Johnstone in a Scottish Cup final. He's were wearing like a weird kind of red coloured strip or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you maybe remember that.
Vaguely, yeah.
I remember Amoruso taking off his top, and I've never seen a footballer built like that in my life. The guy was a fucking man mountain, and he was like screaming into the camera, and I was scared as a kid, like actually scared. But I remember him just being so. He wasn't a Rolls Royce of a defender. He wasn't great with the ball at his feet. He was just like, just a physical presence.
Aye.
And not a player you wanted to play against.
Scored a decent number of goals as well, like free kicks and everything.
He had a daisy cutter in him as well. He could hit the ball low and hard. I remember when he went to Blackburn. He was well known for that. Probably one of the best centre half Rangers had in the last 30 years.
Scored a Scottish Cup winning goal on his last game, for the club as well.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Big Catholic as well. Huge Catholic.
First Catholic to captain the club, which I think that's quite an important moment in recent history as well. To kind of, when you look at, obviously there's still a lot of sectarianism in Scottish football, but I think it's not as bad as what we hear about from before our time, like the 80s and the 70s and that.
Well, we spoke about the F word yesterday. We spoke about the F and the H word, but I'm not going to bring them up on here.
No.
But
I think that like him as captain,
I don't think you hear that as much anymore these days.
No, I don't. And when you do, it can be banter. Like, we'll banter with each other about stuff like that, but it's like neither of us is actually religious. I don't think that many people are these days.
No, so exactly. It's something on your birth certificate.
It's more about football tribalism now than it is about actual religion.
There's only people in the Glasgow area that take this stuff serious. You know? And even then, if you ask them truthfully, do you take this? They don't. They don't. They don't give a shit. Religion's got nothing to do with football. We're going to have on this podcast, and maybe next year at some point, an Old Firm podcast where we just have a wee back and forth. But you'll find that there'll be no religious fucking banter on that shit because
it's irrelevant.
Exactly, it's irrelevant.
Because it'll be cut.
Well, there's that as well.
To be fair, I was meant to get a blue XLR cable for today, kind of have like the green-blue contrast, but it was going to take 3 weeks. But next time,
I did
kind of sat on this side on purpose because it wasn't the green one. But then I thought about it. I've had a big spot come up on this side, so the camera side.
You know, how I'm on the left, he's on the right.
Big spots come up right where Michael Beale's mole is.
Right, Arthur Newman, great player.
Fantastic. Almost 50 caps for Holland as well.
I think that was a bit of a coup for Rangers at the time.
Yeah, it's part of that sort of Dutch contingent at the time.
Yep. Was he there at the same time as Gio?
Yeah.
So you had, at the time, Gio van Bronckhorst and Arthur Newman.
Yeah, but Gio played in midfield at that point.
That's right. But that was basically your two starting left sides for Holland at the time.
Yeah.
And they're playing for Rangers against fucking Hibs.
And then you have the likes of De Boer as well. And
yeah. Did Frank De Boer play for Rangers?
Only briefly, half a season or something.
I remember that happening. I remember Dad being worried about that when both the De Boers signed for Rangers.
Yeah.
De Boer's actually an ex-player.
Yeah. Before we move on, I'll have to give a mention to Papac at left back because that was a tough call to make.
Yeah.
Aye.
He was a bit of an underrated one.
I think so. Yeah.
A very
quite
consistent
a lot of success
player.
at the club. And,
a lot of caps for Bosnia as well. Experienced international.
I think he was their captain as well.
Was he?
Yeah.
I never knew
Captain
that.
Rangers for. I don't think he was club captain, but he captained us in other players' absence at times as well. Yeah.
Good little player as well. I always remember him and Aidan McGeady having battles down that side. Like Ronald De Boer, and you're putting him in at right mid.
Aye, I struggled with the right midfield. We've not had that many good right wingers, even in recent history. I don't think we've had a natural wide right player since probably Daniel Candeias. You see the likes of Sakala or Hadji or whoever playing out right. None of them are natural wide players.
No.
Candeias, even looking back in time at like Walter Smith's teams, he had like a tendency to sort of shoehorn a centre midfielder on the right. So you'd see like Stephen Davis or Arteta or whoever playing on the right quite often.
Even in the 90s, you had Ian Ferguson would get stuck out on
having Kanchelskis for a while as well. He was good.
Kanchelskis was a quality player, really good player.
But no, De Boer made the cut. I think his goal record, he had like a 1-in-3 sort of goal record at Rangers. Won a lot.
Speaks for itself.
Even his class before coming in, you knew what a top player he was coming in.
You could argue that at that time, when you looked at Celtic and Rangers lineups, you'd be confident against any team in Europe.
Yeah.
Because we had names in our teams then.
Aye.
Next person is probably the person I grew up hating the most, and honestly, I really did. Just could not fucking stand Barry Ferguson as a kid. Hated him.
Wee Ned.
I'm still not a big fan of his now. I'm more. I seen him having a radio argument with a guy on Monday.
Something to do with Michael Beale or something.
Yeah, because the Rangers fan was calling Barry Ferguson a cheerleader, and Barry Ferguson and him were having like a shouting match down the phone to each other, which I've got a bit of respect for. I quite like that he's having a back and forth with a fan. But quality player. There's no denying that.
I think to come in and captain a club like Rangers at 21, 22 years old, and I was Scotland captain from quite a young age, maybe 24, 25. A lot of
break into
responsibility.
that team when you had a midfield at the time like Gaza, Durant, McCall.
Aye. Well, Durant was his idol as a kid as well.
Yeah.
And he ended up playing alongside him for a while. So.
That's got to be unreal growing up. That would be like...
If you played alongside Larson or something
exactly like that. Like, just crazy. The next man, I was just... Gary was actually listening to a podcast yesterday.
I quote cut in there because we've just hit the hour mark, so I'm just giving you the 10-minute buzzer.
Gary was actually speaking about this guy yesterday on a certain JE's podcast. I'm not giving him a mention on here. Gaza.
Yeah.
Speaks for itself.
Aye.
I don't think there's anything.
Arguably the most talented player of his generation.
Yeah.
It kind of fits into what we were talking earlier about Ronaldinho, Maradona, your flawed genius.
Yeah.
I think his story's sad though. Like, have you seen the documentary about him?
Yeah, I have.
All the things that happened when he was younger. Like, he saw his friend's little brother get run over and die when he was about 10 years old.
Crazy stuff.
He had a cousin or something like that died quite young, and again, I think he was there to see it.
And he's also got undiagnosed ADHD because he can't sleep at night and things like that. So he's got a lot of mental problems and things.
I think the way he just couldn't handle being in the spotlight the way that he was. I mean, his character. There's so many funny stories about Gaza.
Yeah, there's hours and hours of Gaza stories.
Then there's such
YouTube.
a nice side to him as well. Like, there's the whole thing about who was it, Gattuso, when he signed for Rangers, and obviously Gaza loved a prank back in the day, so. He shat in Gattuso's sock when he was out training one day. Gattuso's put the sock on and got covered in Gaza's shit. But what folk didn't really know at the time, Gaza was getting Gattuso to like go and buy these fancy suits and that, like club suits, and the club take care of that. Gaza was actually paying the bill for him, so that this young Italian coming over could get like the fancy suits and that. He wasn't on the same money as the big players.
Right.
And he didn't take any credit for it. Gattuso only found this out months and months later, assuming the club were paying for it, but it was actually Gaza out of his own pocket.
Wow.
And
it's things like that you don't hear about, is it? It's all just the crazy stuff.
What a player as well.
Do you ever hear him talk about mince pies?
Yeah, I like McCoy's one about the fireworks.
Yeah, and overhearing him when he kept his key and he had been out the night before. He was in the kitchen making himself a sandwich and he woke up.
Apparently, he'd walked like 5 miles.
I think my favourite one is where he got into the car and he unscrewed the bits and put the fish in.
Aye.
He put the second one in.
Yeah. So he says once he's found the first one, he'll think that's it.
It's almost like the character from Peep Show Super Hands is based off of Gaza in a way. Run to Windsor.
Right, next player. Me and you've had debates about this before.
Yeah.
To me, he's the second greatest player in Scottish football history.
To me, he's the best.
And to you, he's the best. Brian Laudrup.
Yeah.
Quality player, not deny that.
Aye. I mean, folk are always going to have these arguments about who's the best, but undoubtedly up there anyway.
Yeah.
Whichever team you support.
He was far too good for this league. Mm-hmm. Far too good. And I don't think he was good because he was too good for this league. He was just good. Yeah.
Top 5 Ballon d'Or the season Denmark won the Euros, 92.
That's mad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, he's playing in Scotland.
It's mad to think his brother was probably in that top 5 as well at the same time.
His brother was probably even better, to be honest.
Yeah. You don't play for both Real Madrid and Barcelona and not be good, you know.
But then Brian Laudrup played for, he knocked back Barca while he was at Rangers as well. Barca came in for him 6 months after he joined the club, and he
joined you from Milan, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was at Fiorentina. I think he was loaned to Milan. I don't know if he was permanently there. I'm not sure, but
right, last two. I'm not going to go through your bench because I've read out your bench. There's a couple of names, but I'm going to ask you about one name that's not on there, okay? And then I'm going to ask you my final question. McCoist and Boyd. Boyd to me is he's a box fox.
yeah.
Nothing else. Just nobody better in the box.
No. Even watching the Masters last night, there was a goal that he scored in there, but it was the same Boyd that we watched 15, 20 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
He hasn't lost that instinct at all.
And I hate to say it, but he's actually a decent pundit. You know?
Again, good guy as well. Like when he signed for Rangers from Kelly, he waived his signing on fee so that Kelly could keep it and invest it in their youth system.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
Good guy like that
Things
as well.
like that. And McCoist, what?
It goes without saying, doesn't it?
I think to this day he's still the only Scottish Golden Boot winner.
He won it twice.
And he's won it twice.
Yeah.
And this
Should have had more caps as well. Like the whole thing around the '98 World Cup.
I looked up. He beat Jean-Pierre Papin and
Van Basten, was it?
Van Basten.
Yeah.
That was the other. So that you're in some company. Like it's unreal.
It's the fact that he was there for the entirety of 9 in a row as well. He won 10 titles in total at Rangers, but he was there from start to finish of the 9 in a row.
Yeah, that's
absolute legend.
Brilliant, mate.
Yeah,
it's right. So many lists. I think I might know the answer to this, right? But was there ever a possibility of having Marco Negri in your team?
Yeah, he was discussed. Remarkable player. I think if it wasn't for the eye injury, God knows how many he would have scored.
I reckon he'd have been on for about 50, 60 that season.
Yeah.
He'd hit 35 by December.
But then where do you go from there? Like, does he stay in Scotland after that? Or surely, someone coming in and scoring 60 goals in Scotland or whatever, he's going to have the likes of Real Madrid or whatever after him.
Yeah, I'd say so. And I think, is it because he was in Scotland he was scoring these amount of goals? It was just like, I remember he wouldn't score, he didn't like he scored every game.
He'd score like 5 and then not score the next game and then get another 4 or whatever.
It was a weird burst of scoring.
Yeah. I follow him on social media and that, and he's like, I really like him as a person. I think a common theme with a lot of these players, likes of him or Arthur Newman or various other players, Nacho Novo being another one, like foreign players who've come to the club and still have a huge affiliation. Like you see these guys all the time at
Heard Nacho Novo's accent these days?
Yeah.
He's pretty much Glaswegian.
Aye. But, he opened a bar down the corner from Ibrox a few years ago as well.
Did he?
Yeah.
I bet that's popular, man.
He had a bit of a health scare not too long ago as well, did he? Something to do with
I think he's in
heart
America now, coaching somewhere.
Wow. Right. Okay. I've got one final question for you.
Okay.
I've stole these questions. If your life depended on it, who's taking a penalty for you out of anyone in the world?
James Tavernier.
Okay. Good. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take that.
I think his technique as well, it's quite unique to go for the top corner so often with a penalty and to have the success rate he does with them.
Yep.
Like anyone's going to miss a few, but when you're going top bins every time, the ones that he does get on target, the keeper's got no chance.
Is there any name that comes close, or is it just him?
I mean, there's been a lot of good penalty takers. If I was talking Rangers exclusively, then it'd be between him and McCoist anyway.
Yep. I said recently, Dennis Irman's my man for taking a penalty.
Did he ever miss one?
Never missed one.
Yeah.
Never missed one. And
I'll probably go with him too then if my life depended on it.
And I think the closest next to him is maybe Van Nistelrooy, who missed one in his career, I think.
Aye, the Martin
one against
Keown.
Arsenal. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, mate, that's been an absolute pleasure. It's been good.
It's gone by quickly.
I didn't think it would be good to speak about Rangers, but actually it's been good to speak about Rangers.
You got to take the piss a wee bit.
Yeah, exactly. And as I say, we're going to get an Old Firm episode done at some point, so we'll get you back on for that.
To be fair, like seeing the exchanges on social media it used to have compared to what it's like in person has been very amicable.
Yeah. Before I go, if you could leave me a like on Facebook, leave me a review and 5-star on Spotify and Apple, Ryan?
and Amazon.
And Amazon. And we will be back in October for episode
3.
This is episode 1.
Yes.
We're back.
We've had to do it back to front just because of scheduling.
So
we didn't want to have me in first because then it's just the Northeast Corner episode 90, whatever.
Exactly. So this is episode 1. Episode 2 will be out in 2 weeks' time, and then we'll be back in October for 3 and 4. 3 and 4 we have
technically 3, 4, and 5.
3, 4, and 5. This is true. Yeah.
Looking forward to your Leeds one. That'll be interesting.
We have a Leeds United episode coming up with Dominic, who's to
make sure you give him a few reminders about before his time, but those Champions League games.
That's a good point. And then I also have, I'm not going to say what he's affiliated to in case he doesn't want me to, but I have a very prominent Celtic season ticket holder coming on who sits in the North Curve and does Celtic home and away, Europe and all sorts, and has got some fantastic stories for us.
We're wrapping there then.
We're going, mate.
Boom.
Thanks for having me.